Hello and welcome to Top Story. Is West Africa becoming a black hole for crime mafias, drug traffickers and terrorists? According to the UN's Office on Drugs and Crime, it is. The UNODC's chief officer for West and Central Africa says the region is turning into a hotbed of crime and potential terrorism. The UNODC's warnings coincide with the weekend's deportation from Guinea-Bissau to Mauritania of 5 men suspected in the killing of 4 French tourists in Mauritania on Christmas Eve. 2 of those arrested have admitted belonging to Al-Qaida in the Islamic Maghreb, an organization with roots in Algeria and Tunisia, which has claimed responsibility for several bomb attacks in North Africa last year. One of the 2 men arrested boasted, "I shot the French and I have no regrets." He said the tourists were infidels and allies of the United States. The men were tracked by the French Secret Services for several days prior to their arrest. So how real is the threat of terrorism in the region, and is Al-Qaeda in the Islamic Maghreb now extending its activities into sub-Saharan Africa? Joining me now to discuss those and other questions is Gail Aronson, the editor-in-chief of Maghreb Confidential magazine. Gail, thanks very much for being on Top Story. So is the UNODC right? Is Al-Qaeda in the Islamic Maghreb spreading its wings now into sub-Saharan West Africa?
It is definitely spreading its wings. I mean, the Pan-Sahel belt has been a traditional area of no rule and where illegal trafficking has been striving for years and decades. There's very little governmental troops overseeing the zone, so it's ideal for carrying on all sorts of trafficking. The other thing we're seeing is that, of course, there have been strong offensives by the allies in Afghanistan, Iraq, and Saudi Arabia against Al-Qaeda. So we're finding that the terrorist network is actually relocating in the Maghreb and West African region.
But why Mauritania, of all places? Small, quiet. Nothing's been heard from Mauritania for years.
Yes, that's right. I think that's an ideal target. Again, Al-Qaeda chose to strike just before the Paris-Dakar automobile competition, so that all of the attention of the world was on that country. The population, Mauritania's population is not even 3 million. It's a small country with small means, but with a very vast territory. So it's actually an ideal
It's predominantly
place.
Islamic as well.
It is an Islamic Republic, absolutely.
And would it be a potential area for recruitment for Al-Qaeda in the Islamic Maghreb?
There have been reports in the past of Mauritanians being recruited to go and fight for the jihad, yes.
What do we know about these men that have been deported from Guinea-Bissau, 2 of which have claimed already that they belong to Al-Qaeda in the Islamic Maghreb?
Yes, 2 have claimed that they do belong to the network, but the actual Al-Qaeda organization hasn't claimed responsibility for the killing, so we must bear that in mind. Again, it shows that the evolution of the organization there is quite recent, because one of the person that was arrested was actually previously already arrested, but then released, and he had been known to be trained by the GSBC of Algeria, but the Mauritanian authorities found that he could be again released and that there was no sufficient reasons for him to be in prison. So we're seeing it's very much a blurred situation, or at least the organization is piling up its influence there over the last few months.
These arrests aside and the murder of the French tourists on Christmas Eve aside, what is the evidence that Al-Qaeda is spreading into sub-Saharan Africa?
Well, I mean, we're seeing there are more and more attacks in Algeria, which I think is the stronghold of the organization in the region. Since the Algerian GSPC changed its name to Al-Qaeda for the Maghreb organization back in September 2006, there has been a multiplication of attacks, very severe attacks against the President Abdel Abdelaziz Bouteflika himself, against the governmental palace, against the UN organization in Algiers. So it is very much getting a strong influence, but not only in Algeria, but of course also in neighboring Tunisia. We saw that there were very severe confrontations end of 2006 between governmental troops and Salafist combatants in the suburbs of Tunis. We've also seen in Libya that radical Islamists there have said that they will from now on be part of the Al-Qaeda organization. And of course also in Morocco, we've seen Morocco serving as also some kind of a basis for Al-Qaeda operations overseas in Morocco, in Iraq. So momentum is definitely building up on the whole of the region.
The French secret services have been heavily involved in the arrest of the 5 men who have been deported from Guinea-Bissau to Mauritania. Does that surprise you, the extent of their involvement in this case?
Well, obviously the region is under, traditionally it's under French influence because most of those countries were former French colonies. So French secret services have always been active in that zone, especially now that we're hearing Al-Qaeda menacing the French territory itself. So
it does seem to have been a very big operation, though.
Yes, it does. Again, I think it was so because at the same time we've had reports that there have been threats against France itself, the French territory. What this also signals is the relative defeat, if you like, of the US counter-terrorist initiative, which has been launched in the Pan-Sahel region for several years now. And the fact that we're seeing all of these bombings and the French coming in, one might say that, well, it hasn't come up with the expected results so far.
Al-Qaeda in the Islamic Maghreb has gone on record as saying that it is targeting France and French interests in the region. How vulnerable are French interests?
Well, they are very vulnerable because obviously you take a country like Morocco, for instance, most of the CAC 40 companies are in Morocco. Morocco is very much like Ivory Coast was for West Africa in Maghreb for France. It's like a bit of a showroom of French capitalistic influence in the region. So they are definitely targets. But in the general sense, all of these bombings give a very bad image for investors' confidence, be them from France, but also from Gulf states. So.
OK, and that's where we're going to have to end it, I'm afraid. We've run out of time for today. Thanks to our guest, Gail Aronson. Join us again tomorrow for another edition of Top Story. Goodbye.